Association, which is brought to you in partnership with EvalYouth Sri Lanka, Evaluation Community of India, Asia Pacific Evaluation Association, Center of Evaluation of University of Sri Jayewardenepura, Asia and Asia Pacific Communication Hub. And for this special webinar, SLEvA has collaborated with Save the Children, and today they will be sharing their experience with child-led M&E. I am Maha Salman, and I'm joining in from Pakistan, and I am deeply honored and thankful to SLEvA for inviting me to moderate this session. Just like most of you, I am an M&E enthusiast, and I work as a consultant for education reforms programs in Pakistan. I am the co-leader of Capacity Building Task Force of EvalYouth Pakistan and the country representative of EvalYouth Asia Pacific Hub. It's a pleasure to be here and hosting this session. So to sail smoothly, let's go over a few housekeeping rules for the session. It is an hour-long session. We started on time, we will end on time, and we will try to give you heads up if we're out of time so that we end on time. And just a heads up, the session is being recorded. You must have gotten a notification for it. And during the session, I will request you all to please keep your mics on mute and your videos disabled so that we can listen to the speaker clearly. Other than that, we want the session to be really interactive. We would love to hear your comments, suggestions, your concerns, and most importantly, your questions regarding the topic. So flood the chat box, and we will answer your questions in the Q&A later during the session. Now, let's begin the session with a quick dose of positivity and motivation. And for that, join me in welcoming my dear colleague, Nazirul Haq, for the opening remarks. He is the co-leader of EvalYouth Asia and Pakistan. He is the regional coordinator of peer-to-peer career advisory sessions of the Asia Pacific region. He works as a knowledge and learning manager at the Equity Initiative. Welcome, Nazir. How are you?
Thank you, Maha. Thank you for the generous introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to join this webinar to learn about the experiences of working with children in monitoring and evaluation. It's indeed a very novel approach, to involve children as monitors and evaluators of projects where they have actually served as beneficiaries. To me, every segment of the society, whether they're children, they're old people with disabilities, or other marginalized groups, they should have the right to be involved in monitoring and evaluation of initiatives that influence and affect their life. And that's exactly why the participatory M&E approaches or empowerment monitoring and evaluation approaches are getting a lot of traction recently, because the first, they put monitoring and evaluation in the hands of the stakeholders who are affected by those initiatives. And secondly, they empower them, they give them the knowledge, resources, as well as tools on how actually to do monitoring and evaluation of the projects. And that's exactly why they are empowering those key stakeholders from the community. And to me, this is the right way forward. We cannot keep evaluation to a selected group of so-called experts, forever. The community people, they have to come forward. They have to take ownership of the development initiatives which are actually influencing their life. But having said that, at the same time, working with children or people with disabilities, or in general, other marginalized group, in monitoring and evaluation is not easy, it's not simple, it's not straightforward. And that's exactly why we are here today to learn about the experiences of Save the Children in Sri Lanka, that how actually they enabled children to carry on monitoring and evaluation of initiatives where they were the beneficiaries. So I'm really looking forward to this webinar. I'm very keen to learn that how actually it was possible and what have been the key lessons learned. Thank you, Maha. Thank you, again to SLEvA, EvalYouth, Sri Lanka, and the host of other partners, for organizing this very interesting webinar. I hope we all enjoy this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nazir, and very well said. I am same. We're all here to learn about monitoring and evaluation and the newer ideas there are. So for that, without wasting more time, let's invite our esteemed speaker, Ishani Kurukulasooriya. She's the Senior Manager, Monitoring, Evaluation, Accountability and Learning at Save the Children. She has over 13 years of experience in different international and local NGOs. She holds a master's degree in social science and is a sociologist by profession. And tonight she will be sharing the stellar story of empowering children through monitoring and evaluation. Hi, Ishani.
Hi, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for your generous introduction, Ma. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. First of all, let me thank Mr. Asela Kalugampitiya, the President, Sri Lanka Evaluation Association, Evaluation Community of India, Asia Pacific Evaluation, University of Jayewardenepura, and all the other partner organizations for inviting me to share our experience with you at this webinar. Also, I would like to thank all the participants, friends and colleagues here. It is indeed a great pleasure actually to be in the presence of you today. Today's presentation on this webinar is about, as we all know, empowering children through monitoring and evaluation. I am going to share our experience from tea plantations in Sri Lanka. Let me first give my roadmap to you.
Ishani, it's better if you can share your screen, I think.
Yeah, sure. The screen is not allowing me to share the presentation. Can you help me on this, Chamatkar?
You should be able to share your screen now. Just check.
No, it's still not allowing me to share it.
Chamatkar, can you share her slides, please?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Right.
Is it visible?
Yeah, thank you, Chamatkar. I can see it. Right. Okay. This presentation today will broadly cover importance of including children in monitoring and evaluation, actually from a sustainability and accountability perspective. Further, this will basically explain the process we followed, and also this will suggest tips to anyone who is willing to involve children in M&E. Okay, right. Fundamentally, we believe that helping is a powerful and often a very beautiful human impulse, but also believe that helping has some shadow sides. We all know, as a community of practice, certain forms of helping is actually doing more harm than good. So let me put it in this way. When we recommend change in people, they sometimes perceive it as violence. But when people inculcate changes among themselves, they experience it as a liberation. So all I look forward to present today is a very simple and a pragmatic idea which is to let people drive, take leadership and authority in their own development journey. It does not matter whether they are adult or children. So we all know there's thousands of evidence call us to the idea that we should start the capacity with the capacity and abilities in people and communities when it's come to the development. Therefore, my emphasis also here is for some sort of an inside-out approach. So that's something we are going to share with you today. So we all basically know the human resources are simply as the other natural resources. They are often deeply buried within. So you have to search for them, and they are not visible sometimes in the surface. You have to create circumstances and provide opportunities for people and communities to reveal themselves. So, but the thing is, this requires time and effort. So, and also the involving community and giving the ownership to them as a great resolution for the concern that we all talk about in the world now, sustainability of the development initiative as well. So the world now, you know, the thought process has changed from the history, welfare to development. At present, the talk of the town is about the transformational development. Unfortunately, we all know still the communities we serve define it as a deficient terminology. Over a period, actually, this has internalized, and people believe that changes are experienced only when a development expert with the right program and the right amount of budget is able to rescue them. So, but with this experience, what we see is the raw ingredient that can actually bring about change and development is hidden within the community. So empowering children through monitoring and evaluation actually it's an effort to sustain the results and empower children to find their own development, I would say. So let me explain a bit as to why it is important to involve children to drive monitoring and evaluation in the development project. Chamatkar, can you go to my next slide, please? Okay, here. So my first point is from donor-driven or donor-centric to community-driven. This is something we are largely talking about. So now the development sector is talking about this participatory approach. This includes involving people into MNE as well. But when I say this, sometimes we may think, you may think that MNE technical jargons are even difficult to be explained to the colleagues in development sector itself. So how can the children drive such a technical process? This is a question many asking from me as well. So what I believe is every human has the ability to do monitoring and evaluation, and they are knowingly or unknowingly doing this in their everyday life. Let me give you an example. When we think about the work we do for our personal development, don't we try to understand the baseline? Don't we talk about the indicators and set targets? And at the end, we evaluate the process and sometimes learn from it, right? So just say like very simple basic example from everyday life. When you go to a shop to buy something for your home, you take your decision by assessing all the evaluation criteria, I would say. Example, you will think how durable it is, whether it is fit to your purpose, and you will look at how that will work for your wife, husband, children in different ages. Is there value for money, etc., etc. You will look at all these things. That's why I say this is part and partially everyone's life. Therefore, MNE is not, as initially also said, it is not limited to the professional. It is just created as per the circumstances to use MNE. So that's one of the points I want to share with you today. And one of the other advantage of getting children into MNE is it maximizes the value for money. You know, evaluation costing, the budget is a concern largely discussed in the field, right? When you start working with children, they will be very careful about the budget we spend. I'm sure that will not cost you to hire a consultant. They can show you ways which are very cost effective. When there is a really genuine ownership towards this evaluation, they will definitely come up with so many options that you sometimes don't need money at all to implement. There would be a certain, you know, contribution from the community perspective as well. So that's and one of the other advantage that can bring to the table through children-led monitoring and evaluation. Also, the purpose of the evaluation will be actually designed together with children or by the children themselves. So therefore, the real purpose will actually emerge and evaluation will answer the real learning question on the grounds. That's a very big advantage of this. And the ownership, when it's go to the ownership, a concern we all have today is the community ownership towards M&E findings. Actually, this increases the level of ownership towards the results. If it is driven by the children, planning, implementation, result dissemination, and uptake, all will have a greater ownership, as well as so much of innovation in closer to the ground reality. Let's talk about the uptake of evidence. You know, the findings from monitoring and evaluation leads the community to actually advocate at different level. We experience this, that in the community we work with. The results of the finding increases the level of awareness, and it leads to an open conscience among the community towards their own development. Actually, also we mostly see that when it's come to the evaluation, monitoring, result dissemination, we always see the sort of a upward dissemination. Sometimes those findings will not reach to the vulnerable and most marginalized in a community, but this helps us to bring the findings to the unreached populations in a community. And it also provides children with new avenue to influence the decision making by using their observation and also the findings. So that will finally put the pressure actually on the decision makers on issues that are relevant to the children. Also, one of the other advantage of this monitoring and evaluation by the children is you don't need to limit to your traditional evaluation methods or the data collection instruments sometimes, right? Like KIIs, FGD, survey methods we generally use, but we may be able to find more anthropological approach when you're working with the community and the children. So different way of collecting data, reaching out to the people, especially to the most marginalized and vulnerable in a community. So that's another advantage I would like to share with you. And one another thing is, we all talk about this COVID-19 context and the challenges we are facing. We all know the development outcomes have been greatly challenged due to the multiple crises like economic, social, health, and etc. So the community-driven or the children-driven monitoring and evaluation really useful as a replacement in a situation like today. So that's again an advantage if we are really empowered the children or the community for their monitoring and evaluation. And another point I would like to share with you today is evaluation practice among children provides a way to systematically assess the impact on children's rights. They will empower to ask questions about their rights through this. Not only that, it also revealed the greater emphasis on accountability and due diligence of the organizations actually initiating child-centric interventions. So these are some of the actual advantages or the benefits of children-led monitoring and evaluation I would like to share with you. Okay, let's move to why children voices matter. More than all, it is the right of the children to be a part of decision-making process actually that influence their lives. This methodology provides opportunities for children to raise their voices and contribute their views for the development projects. And insights of children are different from adults. And also M&E itself a process actually for capacity building and development, and it is a very strong driver towards the sustainability. Okay, let me now share with you some of our experience of doing monitoring and evaluation with children in tea plantation, Sri Lanka. Children participation actually a key consideration in Save the Children work. So whenever possible, we provide opportunities for children's meaningful participation. So we believe their views have shaped how we work in globally as well as in Sri Lanka. So this was a pilot. We were also actually not very sure of how it will turn out, but at the end we are really happy with the results we observe in the community, and when we see their empowerment, it was we felt that it is a success that we can share with others as well. So it's really happy to be able to share this experience with you all also here. We first begin this as a participatory approach that aim to engage children to conduct the field level monitoring and evaluation on child protection mechanisms in actually tea estates. What we did first, we first selected 36 child leaders in children clubs who offered to volunteer to be the child evaluators in their community to help monitor and evaluate the child protection mechanism. And the Save the Children monitoring and evaluation team then supported them by building their critical thinking skill, which provide them with curiosity about their immediate surrounding, so that they always ask the question why. So this is very much important when the children are started. This is where this evaluation skill starts. So as we experience, and we provided also the children the leadership, team building opportunities to help children to be very strong leaders and also good team players. And then we train the children on the principles, responsible data handling and overarching with the overarching principle of do no harm. And Save the Children team then assisted them to identify their own learning questions and help to develop their own monitoring and evaluation tools as well. Finally, we taught them how to effectively use and uptake the monitoring and evaluation findings. Throughout this journey, we worked with them and we guided them, and we provided the answers for the different questions children's bringing up time to time. So we one more thing we really consider in this process to incorporate child safeguarding into this program. So in this process, children were thoroughly briefed on child safeguarding, given informed consent to participate as child monitors and evaluators, and we provided with reporting lines and safe space to report any concerns of safeguarding issues as well. Throughout this process, we facilitated to collect, analyze data, and share their findings with relevant people and the different forums. Additionally, we provided children guidance to identify and link with relevant government child protection mechanism. Here it is known as village child development committee in their respective communities. So there are, like this, there are certain steps we followed and work done in order to get children involved in the process. So when at the time now when I'm sharing this with you, the monitoring and evaluators are still working on these, they're doing their job in the ground. So still this is a learning process as well. This is how actually we have initiated this child monitoring work in the ground. Okay, so I know there are a lot of people really like to experience this, pilot this in your program areas, in your development work. So I would like to share some tips to anyone who wishes to embark on child-led monitoring and evaluation. So the concept or the terminologies we speak here need to be very much child-friendly, and actually it must be comfortable for children to understand. So in order to do that, you need more time for planning and understanding the children context. It is very much essential here. So the environment or the context we work, actually it is quite complex. A lot of power dynamics, social disparities were there. So we had to spend a lot of time on understanding the context in children before we talk about this M&E or different terminologies. And I would encourage you to always think about the volunteer participation. This process requires child participation also. You need to know about the methods and skill and tools that you can use in a child-friendly way. And also, you must strictly ensure that ground rules are communicated to children and promote the child participation and children protection, such as mutual respect for each other. Start with familiar and comfortable topics. Example, monitoring and evaluation for your personal education goals, monitoring and evaluation for your family meal. So it is very important to invest in creating interest among the children. So the small topic, very comfortable topic, will always help to get the buy-in from the children to this. This will definitely take time, but very much important in this journey. Also, it is important to provide a sort of a mentoring support to carry out monitoring and evaluation in the different stages. At the start, they will need your support, close supervision and guidance. I also would like to share a very important point here that for you to consider, to make it fun. The sense of humor throughout the process actually will help to keep the momentum go. So it is very much important to, have that go with the children, and also start with what they have. You may need to identify them better, as I share with you before, understand the context and their skills, their time availability, level of confidence, and some cultural and social factors. All these will really important for you to start with what they have. And we also experience at one point children start asking so much of questions. So don't stop children when they are asking questions. That is where the evaluation skill emerge. And reward them for their good work. So as a means of encouragement, this will really help in this journey. And finally, once their confidence build up, they actually will have the independence to carry out this process. So at one point, we have to make them independent for them to test it and, practice it and learn from it. So finally, empower children by trusting them and entrusting them with responsibility and accountability is key. So these are some of the tips I actually wanted to bring to the table to share with you, share everyone who are interested to practice or try out this in the ground. Let me also share with you some challenges. Of course, this was a sort of a challenging experience we had. It is not easy as, we talk, but it has lots of, concerns, challenges we faced, and we tried to find solutions for. Chamatkar, can you go to my next slide, please? Okay. The challenges, one is this is time consuming. It takes more than the usual time we spend for the monitoring and evaluation. So as most of us, when it's come to the development project, work on the donor, expectations, guidelines, timelines. So sometimes this time is a very big concern. When you work with the children, it definitely take a lot of time. So time consuming is one of the challenges when you're going to face if you're going to practice in the ground. And the biasness and conflict. If they do not understand the concept very well, that can lead to the biasness. Also, at the end of the day, it can create some conflict within the community. So thorough planning, spending time, understanding them and the context is really crucial to overcome this challenge. And the lack of acceptance. What I mean by lack of acceptance as a challenge here, it is also sometimes difficult to get the parents' consent to get the children involved when their priority is different, So those are some of the challenges we also experience when we work with children in the ground. And so I have another thing to share, that is the vulnerability as a weakness as well as a strength. So what I mean by here is sometimes vulnerability play a role to empower the community. When they are so vulnerable, sometimes that is the reason for them wanting and joining this, doing monitoring and evaluation, that is sometimes an opportunity for us, but as well as a challenge, because some of the vulnerable communities, because of their vulnerabilities, they are reluctant to come and and join in a something like this. So, but it gives them a empowerment at the end of the day through the process. So these are some of the challenges I would like to share with you today. So thank you very much, and it is extremely actually challenging, and it is also a learning process for Save the Children Sri Lanka as well. Thank you. Over to you, Maha.
Thank you so much, Ishani. This was a brilliant presentation. It was so insightful to listen to you. It's a novel idea, and I really liked how you were talking about making this context specific, making sure that the protocols are child friendly, making sure that there is child safeguarding, guidance, training, and the language that is being used. Everything needs to be child-centric so that you enable them and empower them. And I'm sure you can see from the chat box that the audience also was really engaged, and they have really flooded the chat box with their questions, and I'm really thankful to them for that. So now what we'll do is we're going to take their questions. We've got some brilliant questions from the audience. The first one is from Bono Sen, and the question is, how amenable are funders to this approach to M&E?
Could you please repeat the question, Maha?
Sure. So the first question is from Bono Sen, and the question is, how amenable are funders to the approach, to this approach to M&E? So what is the take of the funders or the donors community or the
Right.
program managers when it comes to children-led monitoring and evaluation?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting and good question, actually. So that actually had some few, points there also. This as a, challenge, because when we are working with donor funds, sometimes with the timeline, with their expectation, so it's sometimes very much difficult for us to do innovation in the ground. So that is something we experience. But still, like, the results from initiatives like this always help us to convince our donors and attract the funds. Actually, if this success of this, even in the project that I am referring here, we work actually was able to attract fund through this intervention because of the success. So it's challenging. There are limitations here, but also we can create it to an opportunity also, if we are really take it serious in the ground. Yeah.
Sure. So just a note for the audience, if you want to ask the question directly, or if you want to add on to something, so please raise your hands, use the option of raising your hands, and then you will be able to unmute your mic and speak to Ishani and contribute directly. So the next question is from Godfrey, and the question is, other than traditional data collection methods, what other instruments can be used with the involvement of children?
One major thing is what we used here, the observation. We are, when we do monitoring and evaluation, sometimes there's at one point we go and do the monitoring and evaluation in the ground, but they are living in their community every day. So their observation every day really helped and track the real situation. So it's sort of that's why I said most of the anthropological approaches that can bring to the table when we work with the community who are there, when we do monitoring and evaluation with them for their own development. So that is one of the tool that we actually use. But I can say, like, when we spend more time with them, they will come up with a lot of suggestions. So we don't need to limit to the way we are generally or the traditionally work. So that's my experience.
That is interesting. And you mentioned the interplay of different disciplines like anthropology. I was assuming whether any children psychologists were also involved during the process to get their, valuable feedback on the protocols or on conducting M&E with children.
Your question is whether we have had anyone in our team?
Whether child psychologists were also there to get feedback from them, anything,
So we didn't have any specific person or designated person for that, but our team in the ground actually trained on this. So we, as Save the Children, generally all the staff going to the ground, they get the specific training how to work with children, and especially with their psychological, socio-psychological situations. So that was there, but not a designated person, Maha.
Right. Okay, so Laura asks, can you share the evaluation report of the evaluation led by children? Is it possible?
That is interesting, because right now we are doing the evaluation for that specific project. By end of December, we will get the final evaluation reports that we can definitely share with you all. But till then, there's a small assessment or we have done to understand the progress of the intervention. So that is something we can share actually with you.
All right. So we have another question from Godfrey, and the question is whether the shared lived experience on how children's insights differ in monitoring and evaluation processes. So if there's an example that you can give where children's insights were very different and very insightful and novel, just like this exercise.
Yeah, before we started this child-led monitoring and evaluation process, in a general way, we had done the monitoring and evaluation by monitoring and evaluation experts. So when we measure some of the indicators, like children participation, when we observe, when we use our criteria, that was quite good actually. But when we started working with children, and children started monitoring and their own participation for the child protection mechanism in the ground, the insight was totally different. So how we actually observe was entirely different from how children explain that to us. What they said, this is not something, the participation, the meaning for participation is really different. The way what they wanted as a participation in the BCDC, this so-called protection mechanism, was different. So that's then only we also realized, so yes, we have reported this as we have achieved this, but still the children says that it is not in their point of view. That's why I say the insights are different. Even the way they are reading an indicator, they are looking at it, the measuring it, entirely different from the how we see.
Right. And how useful was that for the program or the project?
It was really helpful for us, and we had done a lot of adaptive programming as a result of the children insight to the program, Maha.
Okay, so the next question is from Laura, and which is pretty similar to what you were talking about. So she asked, to what extent do children take decisions and make recommendations? And do you have any examples of program adaptations made as a result of children's recommendations?
Yes, there were certain program adaptations we made. But more than that, I would like to share experience actually how they have influenced or advocate to the government child protection mechanism to make changes. So they got opportunity to go and sit in this VCDC, so-called mechanism, body, when they're talking about the children's issues. So that was not there before they, start this child-led monitoring and evaluation in the ground. So after that, they got the opportunity to go and sit and, talk about their issues on behalf of their other children in the community. So that was I see as a great result that children achieved through this process.
Absolutely, that is a wonderful case of children empowerment. So Bono Sen asks, you know that this takes time, and this you also mentioned as one of the challenges, that it is time consuming. So the question is, how long did it take you to implement this program? 1, 3, 6, 8 months. The question is about the time.
Yeah.
How long did it take?
Yeah, it took actually for us from we initially start. Now it's actually 1 year almost completed. We are still, trying out, still doing some work with the children in the ground. So it really depends, Maha. Why I say that, it's depending on the context you work, depending on the situation, depending on the what issues, development concerns that you're handling, and the level of capacity of the children and the community you work with. All these matters to determine the time actually takes for this journey.
Right. Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. So the next question is, what are the examples and the sort of rewards that were used during this exercise to motivate children during evaluations?
Right. Okay. So one of the thing is appreciation. It's just a word of appreciations. We in front of their other community, other children, we appreciate them among their community. So what they said, because of this, so there are some success stories of child leaders. What they said, earlier they had no recognition in their community, but because of this appreciation for the work that they have done, they have a very good recognition in the community. The community, even the adults, take their voices as serious because of this. So that's the rewarding. I think it's more than a physically or tangible thing that they receive. This is something great that they can have. Some children shared with us, as a result of this empowerment or the appreciation in their community, acceptance in their community, their education, their they started spend time on reading the books, learning more things. So that also increased. So that's something a good children shared with us.
That's really great. Another question that we have in the chat box is, can you give an example of how vulnerability becomes a strength? The question is by Hudson.
Yeah. Why I say this, when I work with this group of children, what I found, there were some children really coming from marginalized and vulnerable communities who have not talked much initially. They didn't want to get the leadership. They didn't want to initiate things. They even not talked much in the forum and the discussion and training we had. But when we start talking about the problems they have, and when they start about talking about this critical thinking ability, when we help them to learn about that and talk about their issues, so then they actually started really voice out it. And even at the end, they are the children actually got leadership, came forth and go in the front line. Because that what we like as a team, when we discuss about the learnings, what our program team their perspective was that they are vulnerable. When they got opportunity to talk about their vulnerability, as the people they are going through this difficulty, they start when they empowered, they start talking and come forth and engage more. So that's why I said that vulnerability can be a strength in this journey when you give that monitoring and evaluation power to them.
Absolutely, and that sounds a lot like synergy, people in need coming together, helping each other out, and creating that power and strength to improve their lives. The next question we have is whether there's an experience that you can share of using children in collecting data from fellow children during the M&E activity or process.
One of the weakness that the children have seen in our program was we have not given much space for the children with disabilities in their community. So okay. the many of you know, in Sri Lankan plantation context, so geographically it is scattered. It is very difficult to take sometimes the children with disabilities to a trading or activity like this. So what they said, we have not given much space for them. So in this journey, what they have done, once they have done a survey by going house by house to understand the disabled children in their community, and they collect a lot of information about their disabilities and difficulties they are going through. So that was a really good example that I could share with you. The children themselves collect the information about the fellow children in their community for their to help their development.
That's a great example. So another question is, how is the parental support to such children views? So basically, what Malika is trying to ask is about the parental support and how encouraging were the parents during this activity.
There are it really depends. Sometimes there were some parents really wanted children to join with the initiative. They see this as a great opportunity for their children and their development. But some parents, they did not actually want their children to join with this because of the other priorities, like they have tuition, they have other priorities, so they don't want children to join with this. But when the children witness that themselves as good leaders, and they see that they are they get rewards from their community for the good work, then we experience that there increase willingness among the parents to send their children to this type of work. But still it's challenging. I would say there are a lot of challenges in there. You have to, while you're working with children, sometimes you have to work with your the parents to convince them, help them understand why it is important, so that is still there. Challenges are there, but that was something we experienced.
Right. So thank you again, everybody, for the questions. So in the interest of time, we will only be taking 2 more questions. But if there's any pressing question, you can always post on the LinkedIn groups and can get them answered. So my apologies if your question was not taken or answered during the session. Ishani, the next question is whether you can share some examples of how the child-led M&E outcomes and outputs were different from the standard M&E outcomes and outputs. Ishani.
Sorry. But I can say, when the children start talking about their issues, when they are bringing those evidence from the ground to when they uptake it to the different forums, when they are talking that to the duty bearers or the service provided, the value for those findings is really big. Then we share the findings, so that is, they go and talk about their issues, they go and talk about their situation. So that has a very big buying from the service provider. That's something we experienced. And also the way they are presenting it is different from what we generally do. We generally, it could be a PowerPoint presentation. We are also now talking and using different methodologies to present the findings, but their way of doing is different. Mostly, they have used different visualized tools to share their findings. Actually, they did not, we generally, when we are sharing the findings, we use reports, draft, this thing, but that's not the way. Sometimes they only use the real example of children, their names, their situation, to emphasize the issue, the findings to the duty bearers. So that's quite different from how we work, but it is genuine and it has a great value among the audience. and they are synthesizing their knowledge in a whatever the findings in a different way for a different audience. When they're talking to parents, they know what is the way that they should share, and to the service provider is a different way, to the NGO, to the children. So they use different ways of doing that as well. So what I see, that is the difference. When it is genuinely taking up by themselves, it has a great value, and it's definitely it has a difference.
That sounds amazing, and I really like how everything is being contextualized, even the reporting mechanisms, the data collection, or the M&E practices to fit to this model. So everything is being sort of being tailor-made to this practice. So once again, thank you so much, Ishani. This was a very wonderful presentation, a very insightful presentation. So many new ideas were there, and I'm sure everybody in the audience, as well as everybody who's been practicing and been in this field, learned a lot. At least I did. So thank you once again, and now you should be able to read your comments, that the audience is appreciating you a lot in the comments, so enjoy the comments. And now I will be inviting Ashinta Lakshan for the closing remarks. He is a member of EY Sri Lanka and APC Hub. So welcome, Ashinta. Hello, Ashinta. Do we have you here?
Thank you, Ma. Hello, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Achinta Lakshan, and I'm a member of EvalYouth Sri Lanka. First of all, I would like to say that I am very grateful to be here today because I learned a lot from the speaker. For me, this webinar was very informative and insightful, and I'm pretty sure that it has been the same for all the participants. So I would like to thank Sri Lanka Evaluation Association for organizing this amazing webinar series in collaboration with EvalYouth Sri Lanka, Evaluation Community of India, Asia Pacific Evaluation Association, and the Center for Evaluation of University of Jayewardenepura. Also, I would like to express my gratitude towards the Save Sri Lankan for joining with us to organize today's webinar. At next, we would like to thank our speaker, Ishani Kurukulasooriya, for the thoughtful content presented today on empowering children through monitoring and evaluation. Further, we would like to thank our moderator, Maha, Salman, for wonderful moderation remarks. And of course, a huge thank goes to the Sri Lanka Evaluation Association production team, Randika, Dulmina, Hasiti, and Madhuka for being amazing as always in managing the webinar. Finally, we would like to thank our participants for showing an active participation today and for all the input given throughout the session. I hope all were able to learn something new from this webinar. So before the end, I would like to invite all you to join our upcoming webinars in the same webinar series. Thank you so much. Good night and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Ashinta. And to keep learning and having these insightful conversations, please note down the details of the next SLEvA webinar, which is on 27th November. And the speaker of the webinar will be Antonina, and it will be moderated by Amanda. And now finally, I would say, tell you all and request you all to please join the Eval for Action campaign to achieve the sustainable development. And on this note, we will end our webinar. Thank you so much to all our brilliant speakers, Nazir, Ishani, Achinta, and to the organizing team and our lovely, lovely participants who were so generous with their comments and their questions and made this session so interactive. And thank you to the organizers for giving us the space to learn and share together. So I'm sending you all good vibes and wishes. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye. Thank you for all the comments.